Welcome to Giants Draft Reaction Show, presented by Crestron. I am John Schmeelk, joined by compatriots here, Paul Dottino, Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara. Guys, we're going to do a lot of talking about who the Giants select with the third overall pick. Their pick is in. As soon as we have it, we will give it to you. We are coming to you live from the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better, and then we will take your calls at 201-939-4513 and get your reaction to whoever the Giants pick here with the third overall selection. We've already had some excitement tonight, boys. Cam Ward going 1, that's chalk, but a humongous trade with the Jaguars moving from pick number 5 up to pick number 2 with the Browns. I won't get into all the details, but the theme of it, they give up their second-round pick this year. They swap 2 and 5, also giving the Browns their first-round pick next year, as the Browns clearly going into a little bit of a rebuild mode here, considering what happened with Deshaun Watson and trying to get future capital. But the Giants are up here at pick number 3. Shaun O'Hara, where is your head at right now?
Well, look, I think when you're looking at right now with Hunter off the board, with Cam Ward as everybody expected, Abdul Carter right now as a game wrecker, I think that's who the Giants are locked in on. And I think when you look at what he brings to the table, he's a guy that you can't miss on.
And the Giants do select Abdul Carter out of Penn State. They showed the edge player. They showed the Giants war room. Once they saw Charlie Bowen in there, the Giants had the outside linebackers coach. That was a bit of a clue as to who they were going to pick. Exactly. Abdul Carter, guys, 3-year player out of Penn State. 6'3", 254 pounds. Keep in mind, he did not weigh in at the combine this year because of the injury that he suffered with the foot. This is going off Bruce Feldman's freaks list from the preseason, which is usually as accurate as you can get. 6'3", 254. According to Penn State, a 4.48 40-yard dash, a 4.35 shuttle, a 10.7 broad, 35-inch vert, max velocity on the field shown of 22 miles per hour. Last year, number 1 in the FBS in tackles for loss with 23.5, number 7 in sacks with 12.5, and number 2 in pressures with 66, according to Dane Brugler's Beast. So this guy is a fast, up-the-field edge rusher with a variety of moves: speed, quickness, speed to power, dip, bend, flexibility. This guy is a terror. I've had multiple people on the Giants Huddle podcast that have come on, compare him to Von Miller, which speaks volumes.
Yeah, Von Miller was, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl 50. When you look at what Abdul Carter brings to the table, you just rattle off a bunch of statistics, and I was told there'd be no math today.
I wasn't asking you to do math. I did all the math.
The next-gen stats on it, those are phenomenal, and it tells you on paper what this guy looks like. When you turn on the film and you watch this guy, what comes to mind is, if you've ever seen that movie Taken, Liam Neeson says, this guy has a special set of skills. He just has a knack for getting after the quarterback. Now, look, a lot of people can beat offensive linemen at the line of scrimmage. They can't always finish the play. They can't always take the quarterback down. When he gets in the backfield, he doesn't miss. He explodes through the quarterbacks when he sacks them, when he hits them.
That's the bend and burst, right, to get around the tackle.
Yeah, that burst. His get-off, number 1, is, it's extraordinary. And I go back to a guy I played with, OCU Manura. That was his gift. His gift was the get-off. Now, he had a couple of offsides last year, I think 4 or 5, where he's jumping that count.
You live with that.
Yeah, you absolutely live with that, because when he's right, he's in the backfield. He's wreaking havoc. So I mentioned before, I think he's a game wrecker. When you get a chance to add a guy like that with Kavon Tibido, with Brian Burns, with Dexter Lawrence, I think this is a no-brainer, and this was probably one of Joe Schoen's easiest picks since he's been the general manager for the New York Giants.
Yeah, Paul, you think for the third overall pick, you're going to stress out about it a lot, but we've talked about it this entire process. There were only a couple of blue-chip prospects in this draft class. Cam Ward, the consensus number 1 quarterback. Then you had Travis Hunter, who was already off the board. You have Ashton Jeanty, who's a running back. And then you had Abdul Carter, the edge rusher, who, if you believe all the people out there that talk about this, those were the blue-chip players that were on the board this year.
And as Joe Schoen said, those are the kinds of guys you're really going to be sorry about if you pass on them. So it's really not a surprise. He pretty much telegraphed everybody what their philosophy was going to be. Now, for those of you who remember some of the Giants' championship days, we're talking about Abdul Carter, who at 6'3", around 250.
Yep.
That's the same frame and body type as Pepper Johnson. But he's got downhill speed, quickness, and agility far more than just an inside linebacker. He is an edge guy. So think about that. Think about the combination of speed and quickness in Pepper Johnson's body. That's the kind of guy you're looking at. Downhill, doing everything he can to get into the backfield. Now,
Paul, Can I give him a modern comparison for Giant fans? O.C. Umenyiora was 6'4", 255.
Yeah.
He's O.C. That's what he is. That's
Okay.
his play style, too. He's O.C. Umenyiora.
Except O.C. wasn't a linebacker. He was a defensive end, technically.
But he played defensive end for Penn State with his hand in the dirt last year.
I get it, but this guy's going to be a linebacker now.
No, he's going to be an edge rusher on the edge, rushing the passer.
He'll be a stand-up. He's going to be a linebacker.
Okay, that's fine. Is he rushing the passer or is he playing
No,
ball?
he's going to rush. He's going to rush.
He'll be a hybrid.
Although
He's going to rush.
He will be somewhat of a hybrid. I do think you're right, Sean, because we've discussed many times over the course of the last few months how if the Giants did take him, and John, you pointed out the math last night on WFAN. The truth is, 25% of the time, right? If Tibido is resting, 25% of the time Burns is resting. Well, that's 50% of the snaps right there. And then on top of that, there's going to be snaps when all three of them play because he's got 2 years of experience as an all-pro linebacker. So there's no reason why all three can't get on the field. I know some people were scared about that. It's not a problem.
No, absolutely.
Shane Bowen, look, we saw him earlier on in the building. Like, he's got to be ecstatic, right? Last year you trade and you get Brian Burns. Now you get this guy. Now it's Shane Bowen's opportunity to say, you've got this awesome gift. You've got this toy. Find a way to make him work. And I think that's where, I don't care if you're a 4-3 scheme defensive coordinator, all right? You're going to find a way to get this guy in a stand-up position. You're going to have some 3-4 defenses. I remember talking to Steve Spagnuolo. He was a 4-3 disciple. He was Jim Johnson from down in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That was his scheme. When he got fired from the St. Louis Rams, I remember he said, I spent an entire year just trying to learn the 3-4 scheme because I wanted to add that to my repertoire. And he basically morphed and he said, I instead of just being a 4-3 defense, I became a hybrid and I run some 3-4 stuff. Now Shane Bowen can do that too. So now you could have Kavon Tibido on one side, you could have Abdul Carter on the other in that stand-up 3-4 kind of look and still be a 4-3 base, but 3-4 is a part of that scheme. And I think having those two guys on that side, and then you're also putting, Brian Burns in there, next to Kavon Tibido or next to Abdul Carter, I mean, that's a heck of a defensive front with Dexter Lawrence pushing the pocket in the middle right there.
And to Ball's point, he did line up as a stand-up joker rusher, which for the fans that don't understand, a joker rusher is a stand-up rusher behind the line of scrimmage. We see Micah Parsons do that with the Dallas Cowboys as well.
Exactly. They got him moving all over the place.
So when they're on the field together in those pass rush situations, then he can play that spot. Absolutely. That's what he did his first 2 years in Penn State as an off-ball linebacker. He only played the edge 1 year. For the Nittany Lions this past year when he racked up all those sacks. Before that, he was an inside linebacker, which to me makes the fact that his pass rush repertoire is so advanced even more impressive, given he's only done it for a year.
Yeah, he's still got a lot to learn. And to your point on the Micah Parsons thing, that was Dan Quinn, who was a 4-3 cover 3 defensive coordinator.
Yes.
He found a way to get Micah Parsons in on third down, involved in off the ball, blitzing, and involved in stunts. So I think that's really his forte. And I think when you look at this guy as an athlete, like O.C. Umenyiora was a phenomenal athlete that built himself into a great pass rusher. This guy played wide receiver in high school, Abdul Carter. So this guy can run. He can flat out run. I will say this. Give me a guy who's maybe a little bit lighter than you would like, but can fly, has grease lightning speed. I can always put weight on that guy. You can't always make a heavy guy faster. So
it's very hard to.
I think that 100%. He's young. He's 21 years old. He's going to come in the league. He's going to bulk up, and he's going to be just fine.
Yeah,
and just try to block him, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns and Kavon on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
Who are you going to double team?
Especially if you don't know which gap they're going to be shooting.
All right. We're going to get to your calls in a second at 201-939-4513 right here on Giants Draft Reaction. Brought to you by Crestron. But first, we want to bring in the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa, who wants to give his take on the Giants selecting Abdul Carter. Of course, Bob, you've been talking about this pick a lot on your Sirius XM show and, of course, our Giant platforms as well. And Abdul Carter certainly fits the stereotype of a Giants pass rusher from yesteryear. This guy's going to be a heck of a defender.
Yeah, when Jacksonville made that trade, I was thinking, would they draft? Did they move up to get Genty and add a running back to the mix? But once I heard Travis Hunter's name, I was like, all right, Carter has got to be the pick. Look, the Giants need help in the pass rush game. Kavon Tibido missed 5 games last year. It's not like he played in every game. And the more the merrier to the party. I mean, whether it was in the 80s with the linebackers and guys coming off the bench that could get to the quarterback, or in the 2000s, Sean's team in 2011, they were able to come in waves. And we saw Philadelphia win a Super Bowl doing it that way. teams that can get after the quarterback usually have a chance to win. So I think it was a great pick by the Giants.
And Bob, to your point, the Giants have built strength on strength before. They added Matthias Kiwanuka to a great pass rush before Super Bowl 42, then before Super Bowl 46.
JPP.
You add Jason Pierre-Paul. You brought up Justin Tuck. Adding to a strength in terms of pass rush, to your point, look at how the Eagles do it with their waves and waves of guys. And the Dallas Cowboys in the division, another team, they've done that too over the years, up front with their waves of pass rushers. It's a tried and true formula that works.
Yeah, I mean, and adding competition to the room. I don't think Kavon Tibido has produced to the level that you would have hoped as the number 5 overall pick. Not saying that he's not a good player, but, I'd still pick up his 5th-year option if I was the Giants,
me too.
because he hasn't been to any Pro Bowls, so his 5th-year option number, by way of people that produce on his level, is going to be cheap. So you might as well pick it up, and you'll worry about his extended deal or whatever you're going to do, or God forbid somebody gets hurt. You'll worry about that down the road. And I think people are jumping to conclusions saying that if the Giants take Carter, the Giants will decline the 5th-year option of Thibodeau. From a dollars and cents standpoint, it makes sense to pick up that 5th-year option just on what his cost will be and what the market is for good edge rushers. And again, I think you can't have enough. He's played off the ball linebacker. He's an incredible athlete. And as Sean said, I was just listening to you guys before I came on, it's hard to get big guys to be able to run fast, but he's 21. Just human nature. He's going to put on some weight. He's going to fill out as he grows into a man. And that foot speed is something that you can't teach.
Will Campbell, by the way, goes 4th overall to the Patriots.
Bob, Joe Shane had told us after the season, and quite frankly, John Mara said the same thing. I was tired of seeing people run up and down the field against our defense. Well, look at what the Giants have done. They got Golston, they got Holland, they got a Debo. Now they've got this guy in Carter. They have made 4 very big, important, impactful acquisitions on that side of the ball. I'd say this Giants defense is looking a whole lot better than it did in January.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's good. Right now it's the strength of the team, because I'm not sure where we stand offensive line-wise, how much better it is. I think the quarterback will help. I still think they have to address the running back room and all that other stuff. But, yeah, I think they're going to lean on their defense. And, look, I think Abdul Carter is going to be one of these players that wins and wins early and wins often.
Yep.
And the Giants the Giants need somebody that when the Giants play against good offensive lines and good quarterbacks, they need a rusher that's going to win. Too many times, they've had these situations where against bad quarterbacks, bad O-lines, guys get numbers, but they're no-shows in games that are important. Well, based on what you got in your division and the schedule that you play this year, you need somebody that's going to win against good competition, and I think Abdul Carter is the recipe. Now I'm just wondering what number he's going to wear, because I don't think 11 is coming out of retirement.
He's not wearing 11, and he's not wearing 56, so he's going to have to find something else.
And he's not wearing 92. 10's taken as well. Just for those, if you're watching at home, we've got the first crier of the draft, Will Campbell, tears. Legitimate tears.
The offensive lineman too, Sean. Are you proud of that, or are you a little disappointed?
I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how to think about this right now, because I like the kid. I think he's a tough kid, but
Pearson's
I didn't expect him to be the first crier of the draft.
Does it almost count that Travis Hunter's interview on NFL Network, he admitted that he was so excited, but he wanted to cry.
Yeah, that's true.
So he admitted that he wanted to cry, and he felt like crying at that moment, but he was so amped that he couldn't cry yet.
Yeah,
so he gets a half a cry.
I definitely would have put it on a receiver or a cornerback. He checks both those boxes. But just to kind of put a bow on what you were saying, Bob, when you think back at the Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles took down the Kansas City Chiefs. How did they do that? They got home with a 4-man rush. You have to have guys that can win one-on-one.
For our Giants fans out here, can we just refer to the 07 Giants and how they did it with a 4-man rush 100%. Repeatedly and beating the undefeated Patriots and Tom Brady?
Sean might know something about that team.
Beating the Giants fans over the head about the Eagles.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Justin Tuck, drafting him, and everybody was like, well, you already have Strahan and Osi. Why are you drafting this guy, Justin Tuck? They had him, with the first grade talent. first-round talent as a grade, and they got him in the third round, and we moved him inside, and the guards couldn't block him. So that type of player, a guy that can win one-on-one, you cannot pass up on. And you have a guy like that, now all of a sudden, look, there's two ways to get to the quarterback and get pressure. You can scheme it via blitz, or you have guys that could just kick ass up front and get to the quarterback one-on-one. That's what Abdul Carter brings. And to your point, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It's painful to say that. It's painful to hear it again. But guess what? If we want to get back into that competition, we got to win in the division. Well, guess what? We got to have somebody that can take down Jaden Daniels. You can't just get to him, right? We had a chance to sack him multiple times. He got out of it. We've got a closer. We need to take down Jaden Daniels. We got to get pressure on Dak Prescott, and we got to get pressure on Jalen Hurts. You want to win the division, you've got to get after those guys, and I think Abdul Carter fits that bill.
All right, Bob, I want to ask
you. I have just a quick question for you guys.
Do
you think Jackson Dart will get picked here in the top 10 by the New Orleans Saints?
Bob, you stole the question I was going to ask you, because I think that's the debate now, right? And guys, we are going to get to your calls in a second at 201-939-4513. So now the pivot points you're looking for, if the Giants are in fact going to draft a quarterback, to Bob's point, you're looking at the Saints at 9. You're looking at the Steelers at 21, and then any other teams that might want to trade up and pick a quarterback. Based on everything I've heard, Bob, from people around the league, doesn't sound like the Saints are in the quarterback business in round 1. I would not be shocked if the Saints were in the quarterback business in round 2. And then it's kind of a game of turkey, right, Bob, where you're trying to figure out, are the Browns going to move up? How far do you have to move up? Do you want to get ahead of the Steelers if they want the quarterback that you want? So this is now kind of almost like an espionage game for the Giants. They have to pull out their CIA tactics and try to figure out what these other teams are going to do, which will dictate how much of their draft asset pool they have to give up to move up to perhaps get one of these quarterbacks if they like one enough to move up to get them.
Exactly. And if they believe that there's a quarterback that could be the franchise quarterback, you do everything you can to get ahead of Pittsburgh and jump back into the first round. And I believe that even if you had to surrender next year's first-round draft pick, I'm good with it, because you're probably going to be using that first-round draft pick next year on a quarterback in next year's class. So if you have a conviction about a guy, the heck with it. Go get him.
All right, Bob. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, my friend. Anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, but I'm going to I'm assuming when Joe Shane addresses the media, I know last year he told everybody you guys could shut it down for the night, that the Giants were kind of done maneuvering.
Don't think that's going to be the case.
No, it's going to be late, Bob.
My guess is he's not saying that to the media assembled at the facility tonight.
I think that is probably true. That's Bob Papa, voice of the Giants draft.
Good stuff, BP.
Joining us on Giants Draft Reaction Show.
I'm pumped.
Presented by, we're pumped too, Bob. Presented by Crestron. I'm going to give Shaun a pass there. I've known him a long time for bringing up the Eagles last year. But one thing I know about Shaun, he hates talking about the 2007 Super Bowl team. He never brings them up ever in our conversations or in football comparisons. So you have to understand that's where he's coming from.
The Birds. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm not
talking about 2007.
I'm making the joke. That's it.
All right. I can't even remember what happened. What happened there?
Exactly. All right, folks, let's get to the calls. 201-939-4513. The Browns got their pick in very quickly. They did not continue to trade back like we were considering that was an option to try to get up more draft capital. There were rumors teams wanted to trade up for Ashton Jeanty, who is still on the board now because after Will Campbell went to the Patriots at 4, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, went to the Cleveland Browns at pick number 5. All right, let's get to the calls now at 201-939-4513. Let's go to Sosa in California. Sosa, you're up first here on the Giants Draft Reaction Show. What's up, Sosa?
What's going on? How y'all doing today?
We're good.
Hi.
All right. I want to give a shout-out to Paulie Dots because I feel like he called it. I feel like he called it because Jaguars, they traded up to go get Travis Hunter. And I honestly, low-key, I feel like Travis Hunter is the number one player in the draft if you're going best of it. I mean, overall, you know what I mean? So I think he kind of proved that. So I just wanted to give a shout-out to Paulie Dots on that one.
Well, to be fair, I would have, I told people that I thought Hunter and Carter were 1 and 2 on my personal list of picks, not who I predict the Giants would take. And Hunter got taken, so Carter was the guy left. So that's kind of the way it fell into my lap, if you will.
So what's your take on the
take a
pick?
bow.
Thank
You did
Sean.
good, buddy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You don't need to blow
For
us head up
sure,
anymore.
yeah, and I really like the Carter pick. I'm glad we didn't force anything. I would have, to be honest, I would have liked to see us potentially trade back too, but I get it, for us to go get Carter, that makes a lot of sense. Lastly, I'm gonna leave it after this. I really want us to go get one of these quarterbacks. I think we're probably gonna have to trade up into the end of the first to go get one, but I think we could see how it plays out because we never know. Like we assuming that New Orleans is gonna go for a quarterback, but we don't know that for sure. We're assuming that the Steelers are going to get one.
Well, no, Sosa, I'm going to cut you off.
I
I don't think we do think New Orleans is picking a quarterback.
No, I
don't think they are. So I think the next quarterback team you're looking at is
the Jets
Pittsburgh.
could take a
21.
quarterback.
I think the general public, the general public, at least from what I've been hearing, a lot of people think the Saints are. But yeah, I hope we go get one of those guys. My preference would be Milroe, to be honest, just with the intangibles, the tools. I think you coach him up with Dayball. I think it'll work out really well. But great pick. I give it an A+ so far. So let's keep it going, Joe Shane and staff. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Sosa. Yeah, I mean, honestly, based on everything we were hearing the last couple of days, another quarterback unlikely to go in the top 10 based on what we've heard. But again, you got the Steelers sitting there at 21. There's a chance they take a quarterback, and then maybe someone could move back in from the second round to select one based on what we're hearing. Ashton Genty off the board at number 6 to the Raiders. If there's one truth in life, if Pete Carroll's coaching a team, they're going to draft a running back.
Yeah.
And they got the best one in Ashton Genty.
Yeah.
So that actually worked out pretty well for them.
Does he not remind you of Beast Mode Part 2?
He does, the way he
think
breaks
about
tackles,
Marshawn
right?
Lynch and Seattle all those years, and it was Pete that was feeding them until they got to the 1 yard line.
I need to throw another team into this possible quarterback mix. Who's behind Tua in Miami? Zach Wilson. Do you really think Miami is so thrilled with a Tua who's been often injured and Zach Wilson who has not done much in this league?
I think that team needs to win now. I think they paid Tua a lot of money, and I think they need a lot of players because they're cap
He's
strapped.
probably one hit away from retirement.
I understand, but I don't think anyone you're drafting there's helping you right away anyway. So
And I get the point. I just think that if you want to take a long shot,
yeah,
I think Miami might be on the fringe of that conversation.
yeah, that connection really hasn't been made. They could surprise, I guess, but that connection
I know.
has not really been made.
I said long shot.
Yep, absolutely. All right, 201-939-4513. Let's go to Daniel in Edgewater. He's up next. Hi, Daniel.
G-Man, our defense is back. I am so pumped up. We finally have a linebacker with speed and agility. You can put him in the middle. You can put him on the end. You can spy him. Oh, Sean, aren't you in love? I'm in love. I know you love linemen.
I think it's great. Look, every time you're in MetLife Stadium, you see those banners hanging up. Every single one of those championship teams had a guy like Abdul Carter.
At least one.
Oh, it's crazy, And me and Sean go back to Rutgers, so I love
Are you
Shaun
raw?
O'Hara. What's that?
Are you raw?
Are you, baby? DJs in Belmar.
Oh, my
Anyway,
goodness.
Rutgers, on the other hand, has not had a lot of players like.
You know who this is.
DJs, Hunka Bunka. Where are we going? To Sayreville?
Oh, yeah. This is Dr. Dan from Edgewater. Anyway, I am so pumped up. Listen, Paul, John, you guys are the best. I listen.
Thank you.
Religiously. Even when I'm seeing patients, I kind of sneak you guys in sometimes. And
Appreciate
you just
it.
Make my day. Appreciate it, man.
No, I appreciate it, Daniel. Good stuff.
Dan the man.
I was going to make jokes about if he plays his patients some Paul Dottino to either get him excited or to calm him down. I'm not sure what they do. But
They would probably play clips of me to get people out of a coma.
yeah, that's actually not you're not
Rise
wrong
and
about
walk.
that.
It's better than the smelling salts, John.
You're like the Undertaker. Bring him
Don't
back.
worry about that big adrenaline shot, all right? Just bring in, just put up BBK and start playing Paul. 201-939-4513. Back to the phone. Let's go to Manny in California. Manny, you're on Giants Draft Reaction Show presented by Crestron.
John, you've done such a great job educating everybody and getting us ready for the draft.
Thank you.
Paul will remember about a month ago I went on a rant and said I was having a nightmare that we were going to end up with Aaron Rodgers and Shedeur Sanders.
I told you not to worry, didn't I?
Oh,
I told you.
You were worried too. Stop
I mean,
it.
there was a small percentage of concern,
that
but
was my nightmare.
yeah.
So now I have my new nightmare because of Cleveland. trade. They've now got 2 second-round picks, and they can move up and get the quarterback that perhaps Joe Shane and Brian Dable want at almost any place. And I don't want us to be panicked that we give up this extra draft capital that we have to do it. I hope we can be lucky enough to get past whatever Cleveland does, and the Steelers, and hopefully only have to maybe use the later third-round pick or a fourth-round pick to move up just a couple of spots, or if they're gutsy enough to sit tight.
No, Manny, I think you bring up a really good point, and appreciate the call. The Browns now do have a lot of ammunition.
Yes, they do.
If they really want a quarterback, they have a lot of picks. I need to look at their total pick number. I don't have it in front of me here, but they have a ton of picks. I know they reduced the number by a couple with that odd trade they made with the Texans earlier today, where they traded a couple of 6s for a 5 and a 7. But,
this is what they had before
they have
the trade.
So now they have 2 2s, 2 3s, a 5, a 6, and I think 2 7s. So
and that second round pick is the first pick of the second round.
correct. So I believe they have 11 or 12 picks. We don't have an updated list here with what after the 2 trades they made, but they have a lot of ammunition. And if there's a guy that they want, they will have the pick capital necessary to move up and get that guy. So I'm not saying the Giants aren't going to be able to do that, but they're going to have to be aggressive in their posture. If the Browns are in fact in that conversation, maybe the Browns are okay just sitting there and picking. I think that's a possibility too. If they like a quarter, maybe they like 2 quarterbacks and they're happy to have one of them fall to them. I don't know what their thought process is here. Maybe they don't need a quarterback this year. Maybe they're going into a long-term rebuild. I don't know what their thought process is, but that does make the competition to move up a little bit tougher.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And John, we discussed during the course of the Big Blue Kickoff live show during the day, 12:30 p.m., 1 hour every weekday, by the way, right here on Giants.com. We have talked about the fact that there are probably 3 or 4 teams who, after the first round, may want to be interested to move back into the bottom of the first. And they're one of them. And now they've got, like you said, the capital to do it.
And the teams to keep an eye on that might trade back. Daniel Jeremiah had the Seahawks in his final mock trading back. The Broncos, who are looking for a running back. This is a deep running back class. They could always talk about moving back, though Sean Payne's always been more of a move-up guy than a move-back guy when he was with the Saints. The Minnesota Vikings have very few picks at 24. They can move back. By the way, I know everyone expects the Steelers might pick a quarterback. They don't have a second-round pick from the DK Metcalf trade. So they could always want to trade back, too, if they're not looking for a quarterback in that spot. The Rams are always a team that likes to move and collect extra picks. And then the Washington Commanders are a team that's short a third-round pick because of the Deebo Samuel trade. So all those teams could use extra selections between picks 18 and 32. So those are the slots I would keep an eye on as potential trade partners.
Yeah, going back to the Cleveland thing, they do have a lot of ammo. So they have the 33rd pick, which is the first pick of the second round. And then with that trade, they also got the 36th pick. So they've got 2 picks almost, within 4 picks of the draft. So, look, they could sit there and after the first round say, look, we got a shot at getting another stud quarterback in the second round and getting another player too. So, look, who knows where they have Shador out there, but even if it's like Tyler Shook or one of these other guys.
Yeah, who knows who their second quarterback is?
They could end up just standing pat and not using any of that currency to move back up. But the Pittsburgh thing is a little bit interesting.
I need to get to the calls here because we got to wrap up in a minute. Let's go to the phones at 201-939-4513. Let's go to Steven in Boulder. He's up first. Steven, what's going on, man?
How are you guys?
We're good.
You do a great job, and I have a quick question. I know you're on time.
Yeah, we're okay.
So, well, first of all, Shaun, I thank you for your Super Bowls and a lot of enjoyment. When I lived in Syracuse, New York, I always enjoyed watching the Giants. And now I'm a Giant guy in Boulder, and here's my question. Kyle McCord was essentially thrown out of Ohio State, despite the fact he didn't look bad, and went to Syracuse with a lot less talent and really put that team on his shoulders and did tremendously. My question is, given the fact that none of these other quarterbacks are really sure things, and you're taking a chance anyway, what about either the late third-round pick, the later third-round pick, or the fourth for Kyle McCord?
I know, Paul, you're a fan here, so I'll let you take this one.
Thank you, president of the Kyle McCord fan club. I think he is the sleeper quarterback in this draft. I think 99 or 105 would be really good value there for him. And I'll be frank with you, he turned out better than Will Howard. but that's based on what happened this year. When he was at Ohio State, there were some things about him that weren't as good. He kind of busted out of that and polished it up with Syracuse. But I'm with you. I think he'd be a great sleeper quarterback later on in the draft.
All right, Anthony in Florida will wrap us up. Anthony, what's up?
Hey, guys. What's up? I don't know if you remember, I called like 3 months ago about Milroe when you guys were doing you were talking about the draft. But so now, like, it's very realistic. So now I'm back on this that I think it's possible that it could happen tonight, maybe, even if they trade up. But my main thing is, like, I wanted to try to talk to Paulie because, I don't know, there was Pat Kerwin has a show, and he, like, brought up Milroe and everything, and he was talking about, like, how he's a totally different quarterback than the Richardson guy and how much better he is. And I just want to see if Paulie listened to that conversation.
I did not hear that particular episode. I love Pat Kerwin on Sirius NFL Radio, but I did not hear that particular conversation. I think anybody who talked to us at the Combine, John and I were both out there for a week, pretty much told us that that's a guy who you can maybe get him on the field initially as a part-time gadget quarterback and do some things with him, but that he's going to need some long-term development. Which, of course, if you're the Giants, that should not be an impediment because you've got guys already who can play this year. So that's about the only thing I'll say there. But he's certainly more of a legs quarterback than he is a pocket guy.
All right, each of you guys got about 20 seconds for final thoughts. Sean.
I think it's for the Giants right now to get a guy like Abdul Carter and not have to move up to get him, not have to give anything up. I think this was a slam dunk with that third pick overall.
Paul.
They were assertive. They saw a guy. They felt strongly about him. They didn't play games. They didn't mess around. They just took the best guy on the board. How do you argue with that?
And they got one of the few blue chip prospects in this class. It is hard to argue with that. And now they look ahead to the next pick at 34. Will they stick? Will they trade up? Will they take a quarterback? Will they pass on a quarterback? Where could they trade up? Well, stay tuned to all the Giants' social media platforms. We'll keep you updated throughout the draft. If they do move back up into the first round to make a selection, we will be back with you at some point. It might be right after the draft. If it's late, if it's a little bit earlier than that, we'll figure it out. Again, just stay tuned to our Twitter feeds, the Giants app, Giants YouTube channel. We'll go live again if the Giants do make another pick tonight at some point. The quarterbacks to keep an eye on, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders. I would say Tyler Shook's in that conversation, and of course Jackson Dart are the guys that have been mentioned by the draft community as potential options in that next group of quarterbacks. Who knows? The Giants could have somebody else in that mix. You don't know. You could also look for one of the other Giants' needs on the fronts, on either defense or the offensive line, or weapon on offense too. So a lot of things as possibilities for the Giants here, but they walk away with the third overall pick with one of the defensive stars in this draft, Abdul Carter, edge player out of Penn State. That's all the time we have for the Giants Draft Reaction Show presented by Crestron from the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Once again, stay tuned. If the Giants do trade back into round number one, we'll be with you again at some point tonight. Stay tuned to all of our platforms for that information. For Paul and Sean, I'm John. Thanks for being with us. The Giants select Abdul Carter out of Penn State.